Welcome to the Spirit of a Badass, where we celebrate stories of courage, hope, and resiliency. I am your host, Alecia Jacobson. Hello to all my badasses joining us today. My guest today, Anna Thompson, is queen of the badasses. Anna is my hairstylist. I have known her for, I don't even know how many. We've had babies upon babies, and so it's been like a long time that I've known Anna. I had her dye my hair pink, and now we have like an unwritten contract that I'm not allowed to do anything that is not just like a trim, and we don't do anything crazy anymore because that was not okay. That I decided, like, I don't know what made me do that, but we've been through a lot together. Anna is the owner of Grand Noir Salon. She is just one of the most amazing women. If you go to her Instagram, we'll put that in the show notes. She just creates this really real and raw space that gives other people permission to just really show up as they are, but also like other stylists out there. I love how she kind of just like sets this bar and like shows people like, hey, you can do this. Here's how I do it. And really just like gives other people permission and kind of lights the way for that. And I love that about her. She lives here in Madison. She has 3 kids, husband. She just bought a house. So she's got like lots going on today, or just in life, not just today, every day. She has a lot going on. So welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show and asking me to come on. Yeah. I'm literally sitting in amongst a lot of things because we just moved about a week ago. So yeah, joining you today.
Thank you. So take us to, this is not a question that I sent you, but share with us kind of like a day in the life. Like, what is a day in the life of Anna like?
Yeah, so I have a salon, and so I work there about 3 days a week, and then 2 days I'm home, managing kids and also growing my salon into a more of a storefront location. So right now I'm pretty hands-on juicing that project. So meeting up with electricians, plumbers, things like that. And then picking up kids from school. I should say I'm doing dinner, but most likely my husband's doing the dinner. He's a better cook than I am. And then on the flip side of days, some days I'm spending 12 hours in the salon with guests, back to back, hands-on, connecting with them and giving them all their hair goals and needs. So, yeah, catch me on whatever day. But yeah, I'm pretty much, I think my days off are busier than, like, my days not in the salon are sometimes busier than the days in the salon. So that's where I'm at right now.
So you said GCing.
Yeah, general contracting, ground up. So I'm learning a lot along the way, which has been exciting. But yeah, it's a new adventure.
Yeah. So tell us a little, because you kind of said like I'm GCing this, but like what are you creating here?
Yeah, I am creating more of a storefront salon. Right now I'm in a studio. So that's kind of the new wave of salons. If you've gone in, it's like a smaller, cubicle spaces that people come and see people in. So I'm creating more of like you'd come in my front door to the salon, like a 6 to 8 chair salon, and kind of shaking it up in the industry. Up in the Midwest, we're kind of like 10 years behind everybody, and kind of bringing the new wave of the beauty industry right here to Wisconsin, and letting stylists kind of have independent freedoms with also having like a community feel right in the salon.
So what does that mean? We're 10 years behind. Tell us, like, what is the vibe going to be?
The vibe is going to be, how do I even put it in the right words? But I want stylists to have more freedoms. I feel like we're just such creative beings that trying to put us in a box usually makes us leave or want something different. So like, the sky's the limit. For stylists and creating also just other streams of revenue. I mean, I love being behind the chair, but let's be honest, our bodies are just not going to take us forever. So how can they get into education platforms? How can we just show even wealth for other things that people want to do maybe outside the beauty industry? So when they actually come to the salon, they want to like be fully in what they're doing too. So giving them a little bit of more balance and creating freedoms for them to like go pick up their daughter on Thursdays if that's really important to them, and creating an environment where they can grow and succeed, but also having that support from like a full running salon, I think is really important to grow you as a person and in the industry, both sides of the coin. People holding you accountable for maybe like goals that you set of working out or eating well. Just someone like checking in with you, I think is super awesome to have people like that in your space, and then grow you creatively, because the industry of the beauty world changes in a blink of an eye. So you see someone doing something really cool, or you can bounce ideas off people, I think is how we grow and don't become stagnant in the industry too.
Oh, I love that. So you said like taking it out of the box. And because you are, I mean, the stylist, I mean, that is what you're doing. You are creating. And if you are inside the box, it sort of feels sort of like stifling. And like you said, then they leave. And so really creating that space where they're free to express their creativity, and then also get that's the piece I love about you, is like that educational piece that you so freely give, but then also encouraging them to like seek out what lights them up, and not just like following the status quo.
Yeah. I feel like in the industry, you can have a lot of other passions and still do well, really, do hair really well. But finding other sources of revenue that can support their family when they're not behind the chair, I think is also a great passion that I have. And I think a lot of people feel like if I do that, they won't stay. And actually, I feel like that would fire them up to be like super on when they are there, because most stylists like that connection point with people and making them happy and looking a certain way and building their confidence and building those connections too. So I think if anything, it would pour into their career versus hinder it.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you said, like the streams of revenue. That's another thing, is I have noticed that you're totally okay talking about money. And that can be something where people just don't talk about, but it's like, you need to have these really hard conversations. And especially if it's in an industry where if you just don't talk about it, where does the growth happen there? So what I love is that I see you talking about it, which gives permission for other stylists then to have those same like, I've never thought about that before, and questioning that, like, why would I not think about this?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously you've been in the salon, so we're gratuity free. We don't accept tips as stylists, which is very outside the box. We're an hourly based system. We're just like if you went to any other plumber or electrician, and raising that bar. I mean, you pay the price. But if one person does it, it sets the bar for the industry to just take us there. So other people can see, like, if I raise my prices, I'll tell people exactly what it is. So there's no miscommunication, and other stylists can see like, hey, if she does that, like maybe I can grow my worth as well. And so, yeah, I have no problem talking about money. We talked about life-changing things, and we actually became debt-free. And I've talked about that a lot on my platform as well. It's hard because everyone has a tangent, like a point with money. I think it's such a emotional concept, but I think just talking about it just helps more people feel okay talking about it. And so, we do things a little differently in the salon too, which you can see the industry shifting, but it's very small right now. But I'm hoping to kind of shake that up even in Madison, to set the bar a little higher for our industry.
Mm-hmm. And that you said like setting the bar higher, because it's like you get in this bubble where everybody just does the same thing, and you're out there like, yeah, we're doing hourly charging. And I think I know, as a person who's not even like, I'm not in the industry, I've only listened to you, and you have shifted the way I think about, like, I go other places and I get like I like tip more, because I'm like, well, you're doing this, and it's like I'm paying such a lower price for your time, but your time is still, it's so valuable. And I just think that's so wonderful what you're doing, and that sort of permission, that like leading the way in the industry to show people in this area that yes, this is okay, and your guests will continue to show up, and kind of removing that fear. Because that's something, when I work with women around this, they think, especially entrepreneurs, like raising their prices, they get so afraid that people are not going to stay with me. And then sometimes they'll raise their prices and it'll be like $5. No, like go all in.
If
Like
you're
you are worth it.
if you're gonna go through the feelings of feeling to tell people is already like a really hard contentious point to people. If you're gonna go through that and make yourself feel all these emotions, you better make it worth it at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
most of the time, like industry or not, or whatever industry you're in, like $5 is not really going to change people's mind. So if you're looking for growth or you're looking to make new connections with new people, you're going to raise it, but no one's going to leave. So like if you want to create the friction, and it's not a bad thing. I think it's just different season of life creates different relationships. And so you might be meeting someone new that you've never even met that is like wanting to connect with you. And I think not being scared of that. But most of the time people are doing that to shake it up too. And then they don't shake it up. And then they go through the emotional roller coaster. And I'm like, that was a lot. So the next time you do it, it's going to be, you're going to go through the same thing and it's not going to look a lot different. So yeah, kind of like with my salon, go big or go home. So
I was just thinking that, like, go big or go home. And like you said, like, if you're going to go through that emotional roller coaster, like if you're going to shake it, like shake it up, like get all Taylor Swift, like shake it. Like, I mean, like it is, because it's such the turmoil that people sort of internally go through when they're trying to kind of blossom and do something different. Like if you're just going to move that needle, like a tiny amount, like, let's do this.
Yeah.
Like, let's go big.
Yeah. And also even from the point of like, I mean, I do it, pour into myself. What is my time worth? From a client standpoint though, they know what to expect to pay. And I think that in the salon world, like, I think it alleviates the pressure, because a lot of people come in and just sit down in the chair and they don't even know what their ticket's going to be. Honestly, it's just a big guessing game. And I think that it just takes the pressure off for them to enjoy the experience. If you've ever seen the TikTok videos, it's like the girl said my highlights were 150 and I left and it was 273 and I got a tip. And you're like, everyone's feeling it, right? Because the miscommunication or a lot, most people want to sit down and just enjoy their service. They're not asking, do you want like this glaze or this deep conditioner? Are you thinking about, they're like, girl, I got a lot of things in my life. I'm here for a reason. Help me out. And I want to just chill. So I think it takes the pressure off both sides. So it's not just for me. I think from the client standpoint, there's just some more transparency and they can know what to expect. So from both sides of the coin, I think it's helpful for both of us.
Oh, absolutely. The clarity that it creates, like knowing what you're walking into, any place that there is that increased clarity, it's like that's so helpful. Cause yeah, you don't think, I remember you were saying something about, do I want this deep conditioner thing? And I'm not thinking like, oh, is that going to be like some added anything? It's like, no, like I'm here. I can just like totally chill out for the 90 minutes that I am here in your like beautiful space and not have to think about it. I
should tell people so they know, but I'm mostly like, let's get this done. I've done this. You can ask me at the end. I'll tell you all the stuff we did, but usually it just looks like I'm going about my normal day, but really just tailing to the needs of the hair. And then it just streamlines everything for everybody. So as a business and growing my team larger, it just becomes such a more seamless transition, especially because I love like the technology base of things too, and just the ease of what most people are looking for these days too.
That streamline. Yeah, good point. Okay, we're gonna get in here. So this podcast is about like defining moments in people's lives. And before we got on, we were kind of talking like you've had a lot of really defining moments in your life. So we might pick from a couple here, kind of, we'll see where it goes, but take us to, kind of a defining moment in your life and how that sort of challenged and changed and molded you into who you are today.
A big turning point, I think, was a few months after I lost my first husband, and now I'm a sole provider for 2 kids. What were the ages at the time? Even 3 and 5 months, I think was like, it was like the post loss. Like, here I am. Who am I going to be? Who am I going to show up as? What am I going to do for my kids? Like basically resetting my whole life after like a big tragedy and loss. And there's some moments of blur, but like taking that deep breath after and like, what do I want my life to look like now? And actually, just even I can create what I want. But yeah, that was a big point. So you think it's like going to be these other waves, but I feel like it's just in the silent moments of like, what now? But I do remember just the shift in becoming a sole parent. Now, like, who do I define myself? Single mom, widow, I don't know, provider for everybody. So, and that was at the age of 25. So already having 2 kids at 25 and losing a spouse was a lot. But that was, I think, a big turning point into being like a young adult and now being a mom. And also, I'm not a teenager anymore. So where do I kind of fall in the needle? And most of my friends at the time are like 40 plus. So not 25. 25-year-olds are just living in a different stage of all aspects of life than where I was at. And so, I think that's one turning point.
Okay. So you said a couple months after, and I was kind of you said I paused, or I was in the pause and kind of in those silent moments, the quiet space. You also said earlier, like, outside of the box, like not in the box, and who am I going to be? So you're really a person who's like not defined by labels either, because you said, am I a widow? Am I a single mom? Like, how am I going to define myself? So when you were kind of sifting through all that, what bubbled up and how did you decide, like, who is Anna?
Still working on that one. Just about embracing the journey along the way. But yeah, I feel like I sat in a space of like comfort and wanting to be at this. And I've actually had other friends that have gone through like a similar experience of losing somebody, and you like sit in that moment for, it could be different amounts of time for different people, but then all of a sudden you just had this sense of urgency to like move or leave or breathe, or like you just had this awakening. And I've expressed it with a few people that have, and they've gone through similar experiences. It's just like, we need to rip the Band-Aid off. Here we go. I think in those moments, you're either going to like sink or swim. And those are like the defining moments. If, the story doesn't matter unless you like overcome it, or you choose to not be per se a victim, the sad story. Like, how are you going to direct the narrative on your life now? So I actually moved out of the space I was living in, and just had a more breath of fresh air. I went back to work full time. I kind of just created a normal rhythm to my life again, because I feel like you want to take this moment to breathe. And I think that's important, but then it's easy to kind of lose yourself pretty fast if you're not going to go back to like a simple, somewhat rhythm of life. Also, I had kids, and I think that kept me pretty sane, because somebody's depending on me. I got to get up. I got to make breakfast. I have to do all the things. But yeah, I'm still on the journey of figuring that out. And, I just chose to do therapy just a couple of years ago. So I'm still figuring out who that is. But shortly after, I kind of, started my new business, and just kind of remembered that we're living in the now, and we can't just wait for life to happen, and we got to make choices. So yeah, I just decided to keep going and not letting that fully define who I am and the events that happened, kind of. But yeah, still processing all that at the same time. I think the loss of my first husband, I was actually reflecting, is about coming up on 8 years. So if you blink and life just happens. But that, it seemed like in some year, sometimes it feels like it was just not that long ago. And other times I'm like, oh, I've lived a lifetime. So, yeah.
Wow. And you said, there's a couple of things that you said. You said you can either sink or you can swim. You don't strike me as a person who sinks. Like, as long as I've known you, I have never, at least I don't think that I've seen you sink. But that is, you said you decide, and you do have to make that decision to sink or swim.
Yeah.
What was that like, deciding, like, I'm going to do this? And you also said you almost had like this kind of like energy to get moving. I needed to do something. And you said that others in your situation had the same thing. So how did you make that decision to swim?
I mean, I think I've always been a fighter deep down. So I feel like it comes more naturally to me. But I've had moments, of it feel like it's all slipping away. Um, I think most people in my life has always been like, just take it one day at a time. That's like some really good advice. And it's hard to do that, or an hour or just continue going. Those are like the first harder steps. But then I think I've also always thought like this is just a season of life versus like my whole life, right? My whole life is terrible. My whole like, no, maybe just today it's not great. Or just like a season. Like if we're in the Midwest winter, your season of winter is longer than you would prefer, but it's just a season. And so it's going to pass. And so I just try to look at life in more of seasons. Like this is going to change at some point. And that's really helped me just reflect and just look forward. Like what I feel now, I'm not going to feel in a month. And when you're in the thick of it, it's hard. But I think if you always look back at like, what has life shown you, and having those moments of like, what's truth, what's real versus truth. Like your mind can play with you. But if you just reflect back on like, write the scariest things down on the list, and then like, what is the truth in that? That could happen, but what has like your past and what has life shown you? That's really gonna, usually you come through. So I don't know if there was like a deciding day. I'm not going to go down. I'm going to go down kicking and screaming before you take me down there. And I have my kids to live for. I mean, I gotta show up for them. So I did say if I didn't have kids, it would be a lot harder to keep pressing forward, but these people are depending on me. And so, maybe for my kids and for myself, because I don't know, it's just born in me. I just had the fight. You ask my mom. I'm the youngest. It's born in me to like, you're not taking me down. I'll prove you wrong. I won't be the quote status quo. We're gonna prevail. So, and like a great support team. I had my community, like a lot of community around me at the time, and just checking in. And I also knew like attending things that I didn't want to do, just showing up would just make it a lot easier. If I stay inside the shell, which I wanted to do a lot, just makes it that much harder to go back out and, to your friend's party or do things. I still remember the first weekend I went to church after my husband passed. Be like, people like, you're here? I'm like, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to be doing? You still have to show up for the events, even when it's hard. You don't have to talk much. You can just sit in the background, but it just create that normalcy a little bit helps, I think, which I was encouraged to do.
Yeah, by your support system.
Yeah, definitely. Like you don't have to say anything. You don't have to be cheery. Just like be there. And I think that helped. Just like, if you pull away so far, you will eventually come back. It's just how far down the rope do you want to go? Like the tether, it's just harder to come back. So I think having a good like support community around to just like reflect, and sometimes that's family, sometimes that's not.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you said it was a season. I think that's really important for people to hear, is that because it is a season, and you said it doesn't define you. So just because something happens in a moment, or you have a big thing happen, it doesn't necessarily, that isn't the definition of who you are. And there are seasons. And you also said something that I talk about with coaching all the time, is like, what is true? And you can look back on life and have this reflection of, what is also true. It's not, you don't have to be defined by this, and sort of you have that ability to create stories in your head. But then showing up, that's a really hard thing for people, to show up when things get hard, because it's so much easier to just retreat and be kind of in with yourself. Because showing up, especially after you've gone through something like a loss like you went through, because people have so many questions and people don't know how to talk and people don't know how to do the things. They don't know how to show up. So that can be a tricky space to be showing up in. So it's really great to hear you say, like, just show up. You don't have to be a certain way, but the farther down the tether you go, the harder it will get to kind of come out the other side again.
Yeah, I definitely feel that a lot. As well. Or like people that are like, people always come to me now and they're like, I had somebody go through something, like, how do I show up for them? Like, and I offer, but they don't say anything. I was that person. You offer and you don't say anything. So it does break you down too, of like, there came a season of life that I had to ask for help. Like I can't do it all. And I'm I don't ask for help. So I think certain things have taught me to like ask for help more now. But also on the other side, people come to me and like, ask me for advice, and I'm like, don't ask the person what they want. You telling them, I'm picking your kids up from school on this day, or I'm bringing you food Thursday at 8. What do you want? 3 options. You know, if you ask people too many questions, like, what can I do for you? No one in those moments really know. Or like, tell me a day that you're free and I'm booking you a massage somewhere. Like those kind of things. I think is helpful for people. If you know someone that's going through something that's hard, just asking them doesn't really, they're going to say nothing, you know, they're just not going to, maybe they will. Most people are like, I don't want to burden you. I've also learned that if people are going to ask to help you, that means they want to, otherwise they wouldn't have even done it. But yeah, if you're going through someone in a similar circumstance, I think giving them options, not asking the question, do you want A, B, or C, or D? You know, I can do a Target run. I can drop off food. I can get your laundry service. Like, which one of these do you want? Versus not a yes or no question, you know, options. So they can't say nothing, or maybe they can, and then you can give them. But that's a big thing, I think, for people to, if the one that step in and they don't know how, is giving options, not yes or no questions.
Yeah. Be very specific in what you are willing to contribute to that person's life. Because I mean, I hear people say all the time, like, oh, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to have to ask of anyone, when really, like, they need the support and they need the help and they really do want it. They just feel like a burden if they do. Yeah.
Or like, what's the limit on asking, you know, like, or they don't, you know, they'll just say nothing, I'm fine. So I think if you know you're going through, you know, someone in your life, giving them some choices and just sending them a quick text, I can do at one of these 3 things this week, what would be best? You'll usually get more of a response, I think. Because then if you're like a people pleaser, you don't actually want to say none. You're like, well, they're offering me something, you know? And it's like, then what do you want to do too, right? So I think it's, I don't know. That's one of my insights I've had for people, especially since I've been on the other coin of that. And then lean into it, I guess, because people wouldn't do it if they didn't want to, you know?
Yeah, very true. Thank you. Because I see a lot of that where people are like, I want to help, but it makes other people so uncomfortable. And so they just say, like, let me know how I can help you. I'd be more than happy to help you with anything. And it's like, there's not really a good space to, like, what is your response to that? So like, and A, B, or C, and pick the day.
Yeah. And most people are flustered anyway. So it's like, they probably have something, they just can't think of it right now. But like, send me your Target list, send me this, or like dropping off food is also too, like, I'm a person, like, I'll take that, but like, I don't want to have a conversation. So like, I'll leave it at your door. Like, I'll be Uber Eats, like, because some people do want to talk, but other people, like, I offer, like, I can just leave it at your doorstep. You don't even have to answer the door, you know, just like creating that. And they'll still appreciate it a lot, I think. But yeah, that's the most question I get from people that are like, what should I do for this person? What'd you like? And I was like, also, everyone's different, but you can give some, even just generic, even if you don't know somebody super well. I mean, who doesn't want food or groceries or something like that?
Yeah, we all got to eat. Like,
look at me, I said food or groceries, all things. Food.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, and it's like, those are the things where you don't really want to take the energy, because you're already devoting so much of your energy to figuring out like what am I now, or what is, you have to keep all the little people going, and you're trying to just like get through the day. So the energy of sort of managing things like Target orders or things like that, like, no, yes, thank you, and you can leave it straight at my door, and that would be so helpful.
Yeah, I still don't forget, like, even it's like, oh, you don't have the connection point, but even looking back in my life, people that did that, I still don't forget, like, the people that definitely did that, even though we didn't have like maybe like a super big connection point, but I'm like, oh, I remember who was there. Because even if you look back, you probably don't, it's like a blur anyway, you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's yeah, super important for just supporting other people in your community too. So
yeah, thank you, because it is, I'm glad that people feel comfortable enough, because you create that space for them to be able to ask you those questions, because it is something that people get really uncomfortable in uncomfortable situations. That sounds kind of silly, but they don't, it's like they freeze up, their words don't happen. It's like their brain just like short circuits, and they're like, like they can't make the words,
or they say
happen.
really weird things and you're like,
oh yeah, the bad things. Yeah.
Like silence,
just shit.
Say nothing, say less. Yeah, people say, I've probably been there
say
too.
Some stupid ass shit. Oh, I'm sure we all have. But like, if you don't have that the comfort, the space where you can say, how do I show up here? Because it's not something, just like the money. People don't talk about this kind of thing. They don't talk about showing up in uncomfortable situations. But the reality is, we all have to show up in uncomfortable situations all the time. But if nobody talks about, how to do it, you just keep showing up and probably saying some stupid ass shit. Like,
Yeah.
So you've kind of given us some, if somebody's going through this, a similar situation, what to do. Do you have anything else that you would want to share with people who maybe going, and this doesn't just have to be about kind of creating that kind of new life for yourself, but just anything that you would want to share with anybody that is a lesson that you took away from this experience?
I just probably be kind to yourself and give yourself time. I think, like I said earlier, a journey. I'm still getting, I don't know, there's no arrival. It's just a journey we're on. But I'm more of a fix the problem, do it now, it'll be better. But I just think give yourself grace and time, because things can always be changed or repaired or fixed. There's no sense of there's urgency, but things take time, and I think that's even the best way to like recover from a situation or things. But I'm always like a fix it. How can I just make it better right now? So I think just knowing you always have time. It's not running out. It's okay. It's, slow and steady. But yeah, and just give yourself grace, I think, in most situations. What you'd extend to somebody else, probably you should do yourself.
How do you blend those? Because I also understand the like, get it done, fix it, do it now. But then you also have like, those are two different speeds. You have like the really fast, get it done, like fix this. And then you have the kind of the softer side, the more like give it grace, and life's a journey. So how do you remember? Because that's a tricky thing to remember when you're in the like, go get it done. So remember to also, show up with that grace.
Yeah. It's funny you say that too, because I feel like in moments of like what you said, like what defined you and changed your life, those moments, you're like, I want to hold on to this moment forever. I always want to appreciate life. And I always want to, it's kind of like when people are older and they're like, you should appreciate your kids so young. And it's like, you can, but you can't. Like, that's going to happen, but like hindsight, you've never experienced it. So it is a tricky balance, because even though I experience all this loss, sometimes I'm like so irritated with the day or something. And then I'm like, why am I, it was fresh in my mind then of like, you should appreciate it. Life's short and you need to do all these things. And then there's this balance of life just gets busy again. And you're just like, right, thrown back in the fire. Like nothing even happened. Like you're getting irritated by everything. And people are like, life's a blessing. You shouldn't get so irritated. Like the ebbs and flows. It's like what I already know. And then when I'm existing in current state, it kind of like erases in sometimes. And yeah, finding that balance, or like what you said, like, how do you do that? I'm going to get things done with a task. And I think relationships is where I feel like time is important, or things can take time, or things can change. Um, but getting things done, I'm like, action of a to-do list.
Yeah,
So
that's why I said you're the queen badass.
yeah, get things done. I've learned to take relationships slower, or just family or your spouse or things. Like, it's, if we're on this trajectory of lifetime, it doesn't have to be like right now, the urgency of fix, get done, make better. Because I think we're always changing. Um, but I think I practice gratitude a lot. And that's, I don't even practice. I feel like I've always felt that. I think people are practicing gratitude. I've even had clients said, like, I'm recently waking up like 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I'm like, oh, it's like it comes more natural to me, I guess, because just my life circumstances have always been that way. But I think if you can't even appreciate where you are now, you're not going to grow. Nothing's ever going to be like enough. So yeah, we just moved. We lived in a condo, family of 6, and, built 50 years ago. And, my counter, it's always gonna be worse, but like my countertops are like always like laminate. They don't even match up. I don't even know what's going on. But like, actually just grateful to have a house or a place to cook my kids' food, even though it's like, a disaster all the time. And so it just kind of feels like, always remember like what you're grateful for. Because I feel like when you pour into that, more things come to you. But if you're never content, it's just, you could have all the money, you could have all the things, the biggest house, and still feel like super empty inside. And so I think just remembering what your life was, and then being grateful for just, I know it sounds so cheesy, like be alive, but like, it's simple things. If you just reflect every day of like simple things, it fills you up. And then you remember, like, that you have like somewhere to sleep at night, or like basic things. It sounds so crazy, but I think in our culture, in our world, you can get really shaken up pretty fast of like, you're just sad that you don't have the next like iPhone and, or you wish you took that beach vacation or things like that. And just kind of finding a few things that just bring joy every day. So I think it is a hard balance, though. I still, get taken back to certain moments or things. But like you said, seasons too. Just going through different seasons.
Mm-hmm. When you talked about going fast, like getting things done, like your to-do list, and then you talked about relationships, it almost sounds like, it makes me think of like, you have your car, like your day-to-day, like you're running your errands, but then you have like this like weekend car, maybe like a Jeep with top down, like with your relationships, like you're just going slow, like I want a weekend car. So like, that's what I think of when you're like, this can be slow. And then this is like, get it done and like do the things. And the gratitude, the blessings, that is something, I mean, I tell people all the time, like doing that makes such a huge shift, because where your energy goes is what grows. So if you're going to be focusing on things that are annoying or the things that are not going well, you're just going to see that more often. Mm-hmm. I will say, however, you have it. It's so wonderful because you said like, I'm just this kind of person. In both the like, I'm not a sinker. I swim. I am a swimmer. But then also with the gratitude, you just have that innately in you. And that's so wonderful. It's not something I see very often. It's something that usually people have to work very hard at, because we're just hardwired to be kind of like negative just as human beings. So that's really wonderful that is just something that you are able to practice without practicing. It's just wired in you.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I grew up, I had a first job at 14, basically working full time. I think I broke some child labor laws at that point. And then I moved out right after I turned 17 out of my parents' house. I was young for my grade, and I graduated early. So entering beauty school, I worked days and went to school nights for 2 years. And a lot of times I just would walk home 4 miles because I didn't have the bus money to get there, So it's like, it's, look back and you're like, oh, and you're like, but I think that just creates that grit in your life to just like keep going. And then, I had a baby at 21 when all my friends are out like partying, and, life's thrown me some curveballs. But honestly, I'm like, in my younger days, I used to kind of have like more of a chip on my shoulder. And now I'm like, I'm glad I'm like that. I'm glad I felt that. And I know that, because I think without those experiences too, I wouldn't have like the push and the desire to like achieve and do the things. So sometimes I look back, I'm like, sometimes our biggest like hindrances, or what we thought wasn't, the most ideal childhood, or your parent was like this, sometimes gives you like the biggest blessings that you didn't have. And I try to remember that for my kids too, because I'm like, whew, I'm doing something to them. Don't worry. I've told my oldest, we're growing up together. It's like, you're never going to be the perfect parent. You're never going to be whatever. But sometimes even what you give to your kids, or the hardships they go through, might be like the reason why they become who they are. So I try to remember that too. Just give yourself in grace. Like, I can never make it. I'm trying to like always like bridge the fall. And I'm like, my parents did not do that. And now I'm like finding the balance, how much grit do you want to give them in some of those circumstances? So yeah, when I was in the thick of it, I was like, oh, this is my life. And now I'm like, I don't even know if I would have that fight in me if I didn't go through some of the things that I did. And so I look back and I'm like, would I change my childhood? Would I change my life? I don't know, because I don't know what kind of person I would become if I didn't have those like bigger obstacles that I went through to have that fight in me. I'm not going down, prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And so I try to remember that even raising my own kids, because, we're all falling short in some way. And I just hope that like it gives them the drive to be who they are, So try to always see the positive, but yeah, we can try as hard as we want, but we only get one shot at parenting. And
well, it's also big picture, like looking at the big picture. It's not, you said like, it's not the small things necessarily. Like, I'm not defined by that, but looking back, like, are you an Enneagram 8? Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah. Is it
okay.
strong? It's probably pretty strong coming out.
It's coming out today. But that's so interesting. The comparison between, I'm raising my kids and, kind of talking about the grit. And I often wonder the same things, like looking back, would I change things? Because it's those cracks that have like made the cracks in me that shine the light for other people. And I don't know, like, would I be here today? Would I be doing these things if I didn't have all of the things that impacted me, probably negatively then, but then, turned them into this shiny, hopefully, life. But it is an interesting, like, I wouldn't want to trade anything, but then also looking at it from a parenting standpoint, and then kind of zooming out big of, life is it's so much bigger.
Yeah. Or like how, you give your parents a little bit more grace. Like some things I'm like, oh, that was still not right. But sometimes it's like, you're only in the stage that you are. So I heard someone say like, how do you rate, you have kids, and then you hear that a lot. Like, how are your siblings so different? Or how are you in the same family, but you were raised in this, same dynamic, and you're also different. And I definitely think someone said something. I was like, you're never the same parent though. Like, every child has a different outlook, and not because it could be because they're just different people. But like my daughter being raised at 21 with her, I'm not the same parent that I am with my 6-year-old now. So it's like, how can you raise in these same dynamics? We like ebbs and flows of changing and growing and becoming kind of a different person. And growing into that is like, your kid sees through you different lenses. My 11-year-old doesn't see the same lens that my 6-year-old sees of me now. And there's good and bad and full, of that. But I feel like I try to look at it that way too. It's just like, your kids are always being raised by a different parent, depending on when they were growing up with you. You had a big life event happen, and you weren't the same parent for 3 years, and now you have a new kid, and vice versa. So I think about that, and like what my parents, I only have as much information, but like when you look back, you're like, oh, they were going through some things, or I remember having a different car a lot, like, wow, they were probably going through something too. So just, I think, giving that grace back. And obviously, as a young adult, I don't think I had as much of that. That fight was more like in your face. And now I've lessened those waves, and now I just have, the fight to do more for my life and not the internal battles. But I tell you, therapy now in this day and age, I always tell my kids, like, my dad with me was here and mom's like here. So you're just going to be like a little less. We're just going to like break this down generationally. So mom can't, Mike, this is what it can give you right now. By the time I'm fully there, you're going to be like a parent yourself. So we're just going to like lessen that as we go down. I'm like, and then you'll be less, and then we'll like work it back. Cause I think overextending, you're just never going to like just wake up and be this whole new person. So yeah, I more like just tell my kids, when I mess up or when I do the stuff, because I'm like, we're just going to lessen it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
I like that, not being the same parent. I've never actually heard that before. Like, yeah, you're the parent you were. And obviously I know this, I understand it, but I've never thought of that like through the lens of my children, seeing me as a different parent depending on the season I was in. That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Especially your firstborn too. I don't know. You're more like worried and doing all this thing. And my third one, I'm like, who wants it? An hour old.
If you need Oreos, it's fine.
Yeah, whatever. You're fine. But yeah, that's a part of, like I said, just, I think, give yourself grace. And if you have a good friend that can remind you of that too, those moments, you need those key people that they're not really going to take your side, but they're just going to keep you where you need to be. The friends that are like, if you have a argument with your spouse or your parent or something happens, they're not like trying to take your side. They're just trying to like, maybe they didn't mean that. What do you think's happening in their world? You need those kind of friends,
Oh yes, you do. Yes.
And the ones that don't mind you, like, this is what I did with my kid today too. So we'll just, just kind of give you that reminder, I think too. It's kind of, you don't need many of them. It's like one or two.
Yeah, hang on to them. They are important.
Yeah.
They are important. All right. Last question for you is your number one life hack. So yeah, I know. I feel like we've talked about this before. So anything that helps you save time, energy, or resources.
Okay. I do have one. It has nothing to do with anything, but when you're in
That's all right. Let's hear it.
The throes of life, I'm not good with doing laundry. Let's just say and then when you have little kids and you have a lot of them, it just builds to this point of like, you're never going to see that. It's like you're on a hamster wheel with the laundry. And I've caught myself in moments like, I literally can't do anything this weekend because I have so much laundry. Like, I would literally be at this house all weekend. I used to pack my kids up, go get some quarter rolls, and like go to the laundromat for 2 hours and just throw like boom, 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 shut all the lids, go to the dryer, do all the dryer. Also, you can do like bigger loads if you're doing like all the colors, all the things. And then I'd fold it all. I wouldn't leave until I folded it all. But then I had time to like do other stuff. People used to think I was crazy. I mean, it's embarrassing bringing out that much laundry, but that is like, for $20, you can have your weekend back. You can have all the things. Put your kid in the laundry bag cart. I still do that. Actually, we moved. Okay, it was actually bougie. I like took it to a place that folded it and laundered it, and I actually didn't prefer that. I was like, I don't even think you use my laundry soap. I don't like this. But it was like, it was all folded and brought back to me so I could like go to my new house. But I used to just feel like, I don't know, I'm swallowed up in this. And so I used to do that when I was working full time and had 3 kids and I was basically a single parent. And even now, still, I'm like, when I'm knee deep in like a lot of laundry or all the bed sheets, we're just taking them all and you can just do it all in one big thing. I know it's like a cost that you don't really necessarily want to pay, but like, what is your time worth? I feel like at some points, I don't know. Or just picking up. I hate picking up. I feel like if you set a timer for 10 minutes a day, just pick some things up that can like change your life. 10 minutes. You can do a lot in 10 minutes. I never realized. Someone taught me that and I was like, okay, we'll do it. I love it.
All right, Anna, thank you so much. It was wonderful talking with you today. And I know that your journey and story will inspire others in many different ways. So thank you for showing up and being your authentic, badass, like amazing self.
Oh, thanks for having me. I know I was going to prep and then I told Alecia, well, it's just my life. I don't know. I'm just here living it. So I don't know what I'm going to prep for. Here we go.
Yeah, it's your journey. Yes.
Yeah, I definitely feel like too. If you message me on Instagram or something, you'll most likely get a voice memo back from me because I'm all about connecting on that level and just, I don't know, sharing in that way.
Will you tell people how to connect with you on social media?
Yeah, my platform of choice is Instagram. I'm at the Wisconsin Hairdresser. I'm mostly on my stories a lot. I post, but like stories is like my jam. I feel like you really get to know people on stories. But if people message me, I am like the voice memo queen. So if you want to chat about anything or have questions, I'm like totally an open book, honestly. Probably too honest sometimes.
No, I love the honest. I love it. It's my favorite thing about you.
Yeah. So I share about my hair on there and my life, a little bit of both. I don't really separate the two because I don't really feel like it's a separate thing. It's kind of just one life, one vision.
Perfect. One vision. I love it. And we'll put all your contact in the show notes also so people can find it that way.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
This is fun.
Thanks, Anna.
Thanks.
Spirit of a Badass is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Alecia Jacobson. Music by Shane Ivers. We'll be back with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep your spirits high and your energy badass.